Do you like the song? Do you enjoy listening to and singing music? The main difference between those who like music and those who don't comes down to personality. Personality is mainly determined by the brain's response, and this person's brain is more sensitive to music than language. That's why the fetuses inside this mother's body don't even communicate. Experts report that they react sensitively to music. Therefore, it is said that on farms that raise chickens or farms that raise dairy cows, if you play yes music, the animals are much healthier, the eggs are full, and the milk is of good quality. So if you go to every shopping center, any shopping center will play cheerful music. If you open the door and keep playing it until you close it, what will happen if you play Changsung songs or very sad music in this department store? Hey, shopping and so on, my heart is depressed, but go quickly. It is a signal that the department store will not start a business. Perhaps playing such sad music. Experts at a university in the UK say yes to people who like music, especially in music. There are many genres of music now. What kind of music do you like? I'm doing research. Depending on your personality, there is a clear distinction between the music you like and the music you don't like. If you listen to me, where do I belong? People who like blues or jazz are now mainly self-esteem, creative, outgoing, cultural, and friendly. Now, people who like classical music or opera also have high self-esteem, and they are more productive and creative. It's personality, but there are mainly introverted personalities. People who like Navi, Kanchurina, or Western music now say that people with high self-esteem, extroverted and hardworking styles like this genre. Nowadays, whether it's rock or heavy metal that young people mainly like, they are people with very low self-esteem, people whose desires are not fulfilled, and they are extroverted and friendly, but they are not that desirable. People who think it's not a reverse structure, but now every time a new song comes out or a hit song comes out, they sensitively follow it. That person is faster than anyone else. And he is the type of person who puts in a lot of effort to train me to sing along to the song before anyone else. There is this great social value that this music has. So when you sing this music together, you feel a sense of belonging and a sense of unity. All countries are their own. When we sing the patriotic songs of our peoples, we become one and feel a sense of unity. And this sense of belonging and unity as people in this country is realized very early, which is a great social value that occurs when we sing our own country. So all these schools make curriculum. When we call the curriculum, we are students of the same school and soldiers who go into battle, especially if they go towards the vision that the school is aiming for. People sing military songs. When we sing the military song, we are comrades in life together. He is a guy who shares life and death. Now that the power that is very clear in morale and announces invincibility appears when singing military songs, you must now align our direction with the worship and sing praise when you pray. What is the meaning of this praise that we sing? As I said so far, people like songs depending on their personality. Someone who has feelings and hates. From an extended perspective, there are people who like praise, and because they can't sing, and singing is a burden. So people with this conservative and introverted personality are what love is, grace. I'm not that comfortable expressing these words with my mouth through music. It is especially awkward to directly convey the words of love for our Korean nation, which has followed this conservative rhetoric. There is love and grace for God who cannot even be seen. I'm not really used to these words. So some people don't come to praise time. Don't we usually start with a song or two? This statement itself is wrong now. Many misunderstandings have been said about this chant in the past among those who now misunderstand it. Now let us prepare the service by singing the preparation hymn. Praise is the song that prepares your worship and some people. I hope we can sing our praises and come to the front seat. Approval is not required for a seat, but in the past, people who misunderstood it like that, especially among young people, our stepchildren, came in at the time of approval, about 15 minutes past, and then came in at the end of the approval, and those who had been there for a long time also went to church for 2 days. The time to praise while doing that work is just skip. Why is that if you do not know the true meaning of praise? Now explain praise in the Old Testament way. Praise is my thought, praise sacrifice. Would you like to read Hebrews 13:15 together? Therefore, we always offer the sacrifice of praise through Jesus, the fruit of the lips that bear witness to his name. In the Old Testament, any sacrifice must have an offering, ox, goat, sheep, even pigeons, they take their sacrifices and bleed them. If we think about the meaning of this atonement, how can we not praise the suffering and death of the cross on which the ashes of the acid city must die? That's the problem. It's not enough guys who have taken everything in their pockets. So with all the power in our souls, because there is nothing to give because of Jesus Christ, who became the wealth of my life, who received the punishment of the crucifixion. The greatest thing to give is the sacrifice of a cent, chapter 43, Isaiah 43:20. For I have made this people for myself. Why did God make me and you men, that you might approve of me? What is the purpose of your creation? What is the purpose of creating man to please God? What is the purpose of separating us, resurrecting the abandoned lives in eternal punishment and completely changing their direction to God and fulfilling the purpose of his original creation? We will glorify him gloriously and glorify him forever and ever. This is the purpose of God's creation and the purpose of salvation. If the fundamental purpose of our ascent is that he created us to ascent to the God who wanted us to ascent and that he saved us, and we correctly understand the meaning of this ascent, must this be a hymn sung only with our mouths? There is an essay by a Korean children's writer named Oh Yun-suk, invited by a disabled mission. We are having a happiness-sharing feast, and if the poet comes and gives encouragement and approval, please make an announcement at the same time. We will all be a great strength to the disabled. I invited him politely, but due to personal circumstances, there were things I could do better, and I couldn't think of any awards, so I politely declined. I just couldn't take this opportunity, so I gave up and left work. But in some part of my mind, something kept happening. Even though I declined, I hope it will encourage me to take a seat in the audience. With that in mind, I entered the neighborhood hall where the Happiness Sharing Festival was held, took a seat and sat down. Now, according to the order, someone comes out and calls to hunt, and he comes out in a wheelchair and straps a guitar, and it looks like it, but the person who comes out in everything is hunting with a guitar, and how bright his face is, and the lyrics of the song. Tears flowed without even realizing it, piercing the heart of this poet who was sitting in one corner one by one. Although many are not physically handicapped, and that person is physically handicapped, this poet realizes that spiritually I am clearly handicapped, and that person sheds tears that a free person cannot control and does not know how much he is struggling. And then I wrote this: I shed tears and then my eyes are beautiful. That people look so lovely, I thought it was all a coincidence, but one thing is not grace, ladies and gentlemen. This is the value of a true new song. My true new song of praise. Where are you? Where is your new song? Before the new song comes from a new heart and a new faith that we sing thanks and praise if we show according to the situation, but there is a reason to praise. Let's think about Jesus last night. Now, the one who shares the last meal with the disciples, who are truly the last, holds the bread while eating the last meal and says, "This is your commemoration that I took this bread and made myself fat before the last meal on this earth. If you disciples do not feel it, I will shed the seed of Jesus," saying the last word one by one. Let us rise up and wipe the feet of our disciples for the last meal in which they will never eat or drink again on this earth. Now, everything is close. The Bible records this. As we move towards the end of all this, Jesus praises, and the thorn Jesus praises. Do you have a heart for praise now? What is the meaning of Jesus' words? How scared you were when you were going to die, Father. I don't want to leave the cross behind once, twice, 3 times before God. Jesus' words that are properly saved. But in the end, do I want to do my Father's will? Ladies and gentlemen, it is not the time to ascend to the throne as the king of atrocities in the world, but to put it in our language, on the road to death instead of sinners who were not worthy of being imprinted on all things. How was Jesus able to sing praise in the midst of such extreme despair and suffering? Looking at Jesus' coexistence, especially in the Gospels, Jesus, I didn't see it as I wanted. Not every word I say is my will. I read and share the words that the Father told me to do as the Father who sent me will, and I share them well. At the same time, Jesus also mentions the words in the council in the Old Testament, especially the words about the prophecy of the Messiah, the words of chapter 24, 5, 13, which are said to be the core of this shooter. By his chastisement we have peace, and by his stripes we have heart. Forward humanity. When Jesus was 12 years old, I began to realize the mission of this mediator sent by God from a young age. When parents looking for their lost son walked down the streets of Seoul and found Jesus in the temple in Jerusalem, I just got nervous. Hey, you guy, Abby said that you can burn Abby's insides like this, but you didn't know that I knew it in my Father's house. Jesus is not his life. To begin the work of the Messiah's redemption that the Father sent me to do and to live a long and healthy life on this earth is even more blessed when viewed as a human being. I, Jesus, am a person who has the idea of God's sovereignty, that I was sent as the Messiah of God before I was a human being, and that I can achieve the peace of mankind that God wants to achieve by being chastised, and that I can receive the reconciliation that can heal mankind's rotten wounds by being scourged. Now that I have accepted myself, I am ruined. The moment when the Father's will is realized is the worst moment of suffering for Jesus as a man. But Jesus praises the fact that the Father's will is done. So does the Apostle Paul. Everyone, you are trapped in a deep dungeon. where no sunlight comes in, damp and infested with unknown insects, and every time the tangled pizza moves, it spreads throughout your body and brings pain. He was in prison with Scylla while covered in dust, starving and being destroyed. What are you in favor of in the middle of the night? It's insane. How can you sing hymns in the middle of the night in that deep prison? If you meditate on the situation in Jesus, the situation in Paul, or the situation in Jesus, or the situation in Paul, or the monk. Paul is the one who gave the light of love to Jesus. Jesus as a young man, the one who took the lead in killing believers and killing Stephen. While going to Dam-Haisok to arrest more people and put them in prison, a resurrected monk appeared. If this part of Paul's faith was omitted, Saul could not have been Paul. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? A child who will kick me again is suffering for me. No matter how much I persecute you, you persecute me, as if for those of you who are walking on thorns, it hurts to walk on thorns. It only hurts. Who is it that you put together in vain? That gospel like thorns cannot collapse. Can you, I am Jesus whom you persecute? And whenever I think of that time, Paul is one of the worst and worst people in the world. If you think of the life of a man who is sad to be second, now by the grace of God, stripped of his position of being a witness to Jesus, I fought contagion. Nevertheless, the contagion has not forsaken me. And when I think of the grace that has called me to be a witness to its shelter, I am in this prison. What is there is also a 5-star hotel compared to the authority given by the Lord? How can I not approve of being in such a beautiful dungeon, a sinner who must enter that sulphurous fire that does not extinguish? In your hymns, the hymns sung with our mouths by abilities unknown to us, the true hymns are the confessions of the emotional explosion of our language expressed with all our soul, spirit, heart, and life in that hymn. The power that can crumple the bars of that cage like a crumple of paper, because the Spirit of God explodes and destroys them in an instant, is hymns. This is the power of the new song. The charm of hymns, this is the power that hymns have. Therefore, the hymns sung by the tunes, the changes in the voices ringing in our throats in order to fulfill the mission of the Father who sent us, Christ of the same grade as us, sent by the Lord instead of the punishment I should receive. Even though the flesh should die, the spirit and soul in Jesus and the amazing power of God's revelation could forsake him, no matter how much the power of compulsion drew him into the midst of the three. The Spirit of God of Jesus Greedo, melted in that thanksgiving and interceding devotion, is the power to overcome the power of the education. This is praise, and this is a new song of praise, a new song of praise, a new song of life, ever new. A family from Germany immigrated to Pennsylvania in an attempt to bring back the sick and recover them, and to conclude a sermon that was in the early days of the founding of the United States. I settled down for a while, built a house, farmed, and suddenly Indian warriors came in. The natives drove into every house, but when they entered this house, the 2 young daughters were so scared that they hid behind their father and proudly offered cigarettes to the Indian warriors. If you speak English, these guys will be thirsty. Go to that city department, draw some water, get dyed in German, and run away without coming home. The children took buckets and went to the stream to draw water. As the water was boiling, there was a gunshot, and suddenly the house started to catch fire, and the young siblings, Barbara and Regina, ran away, but they didn't take a few steps. Not only did the Indians burn down their houses, but the neighborhood had just started burning down, and many Indians had lost their homes. They went in and massacred, and a father and a son were killed, and these little girls were taken captive by the Indians and dragged west for days and nights and nights. Her older sister, Barbara, was forcibly dragged to hold her young Regina's hand tightly, trying not to break up under any circumstances. And in order to reassure her, this older sister, Barbara, held her younger sister's hand tightly. The title of the song is I Am Alone, but I Am Completely Alone. I am very lonely because I am alone, but I feel that the Lord is always by my side, and he has come to comfort me when I am lonely. He is by my side. He is by my side. So we were not lonely, and at some point she would hug her sister Regina when she slept at night and sing this hymn together and be dragged to bed like that so that the Indians would not disperse. This group split into 2 groups. Where do your sister and brother go in different directions? Unbeknownst to me, my brother and sister dispersed and finally arrived at the Indian village. While working as a farmer, they were not allowed to use English, forced to use only their original language, and worked hard every day. My sister is worried about where her younger brother is, but it's been a year, 2 years, 3 years without my book. Have you? Look at my sister. I accidentally tried to dehydrate one day, and it was successful. I ran for 11 days without stopping night and day, and finally met a rescue team. I went to the commander and asked him to rescue my sister, but we couldn't find her in a place where we didn't know direction, senses, or distance. I just gave up and returned her to her mother's house. No sign. One day, while living in resignation without hope, big news broke that 206 prisoners were rescued. Mother and Sister Barbara, let's go find us. I'm sure Degina's in there. 10 years have passed. The foremen who lived in the Indian village all changed into Indians, and no matter how much I turned over each person's face, I still saw my daughter's appearance. I searched for days and searched every person one by one, and I recognized them. There was no one to see, and even someone who looked like his daughter came to the rescue captain with determination, and now we have no choice but to give up looking for it. If we were alive, there was no way we wouldn't be able to find it like this. At that time, the rescue captain was like this. Did he have any scars when he was young? Aren't you wearing some kind of jewelry or bracelet? Think about it. Do you remember a song you used to sing when you were young? The faces of this mother and this Sister Barbara lit up. Yes, not to mention the praise of the old Nathalon. Now the mother and eldest daughter sing the approval, checking the faces of each person and singing the approval as they go back and forth in the neighborhood. Would you like to listen to this movie music once? A tall, skinny girl, an unfamiliar face that neither her mother nor her sister recognize, hugs the face of a child mother like an Indian virgin who has forgotten English or poison and wails. I forgot my mother tongue, I forgot my English, I forgot my mother's sister's face, but the hymn I learned when I was young was alive. This is the new song that saved me. Do you have this new song? I remember the hunger that came to me when I was lonely and no one looked back at me when I was filming, like a lonely Dangsei who fell into a depression at that time. Do you remember the song I sang? I personally remember this. How many new songs are you writing? I have gone far, far away, miserable, suffering, sad, lonely, and silent. Jesus, don't leave you recently, Osius. Carry her with Jesus. No one welcomes me into the world. My parents can't do anything for me. My family. On the Wednesday night of the pioneer period, when they heard the gospel, reconvened and began anew, singing family hymns, leaving the flock, this debauched body that went a long way because it hated the voice of the shepherd that went a long way, hated the voice of the great unfaithful father, so it embraced the sheep that had gone a long way and welded it with dignity. In the arms of Jesus, the new song that my family sang with tears is how much I am intoxicated and devoted to my first love and whether I want to live for the sake of my future life. And I have to sit under the organ in the empty education hall and learn the organ, and I have to learn the accompaniment. But the song I chose is 310, My Body for You. I shed my blood. I give you a way to live for my sins. I give you your body. And what are you giving? Give me your body and just give you something. Everyone, those who have a confession of a new song, will not back down under any circumstances, but will be held by that new song, and the remaining life will be carried out according to the confession of faith and the confession of praise. When things don't work out, when your heart is heavy, sing the new song that you shut down again. And I believe that the new song will change your life anew and inspire you anew.